Hi friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making my first design team project for Country Craft Creations, and as you know from my unboxing I got the Graphics 45 Bloom Collection, which is absolutely gorgeous and it screams decorate my house with me. So that's what this project is. It's kind of like something to put up like a home decor item, and I think it's totally awesome. But it's also something that you can give as a gift to somebody. So I'm going to kind of go through and show you the project first, and if you like what you see, then yeah, just hang out and I'll show you how to make it. So this is a great gift giving thing, and so what I did was I just made kind of like a little present type decoration for the front of it, and I'll show you how to make that, how I made that flower and kind of put that little piece together right there to make it a pretty present to give to somebody. This would make a great wedding gift, by the way, or anniversary, or any elegant type of an occasion where you want to give a gift to somebody. So first we're going to open it up, and inside we're going to pull these two pieces apart, and then voila, there it is. So this will sit up like on a mantelpiece or like a couch table or anywhere that you've got that you want to display some beautiful pictures, and it will hold an 8x10 in the middle, two 5x7s, and two 4x6s, and it will sit up kind of like this. So if you've got it up on the table, I know you can only see it from the top because I don't have a front facing camera, but you get the idea of how it'll look. So let's talk cardstock. I'm sorry, chipboard. So I got a couple pieces of the 12x12 chipboard in my design team kit, but this is a very chipboard heavy project. So here's a couple of suggestions. If you've got any cardboard, cardboard will work just fine for some of the bigger pieces that you might need to break it up. Also, if you have any 12x12 paper packs laying around, and this happens to be one that I think I haven't used it in years, but if you look on the back, that back piece is a 12x12 chipboard piece. A lot of your 12x12 paper pads will be held together with chipboard, so you can also pull those off. Here are all of your measurements for the actual cutting of the chipboard, and that optional piece, we'll get to it. I'll actually put a big disclaimer up that this part is optional if you don't want to do it. So I've already cut down all of my cardstock pieces and I'm ready to go. So I've got all of my base pieces. So these ones here are the ones that I'm going to cut at a diagonal. So you saw in the opening video where the two 4x6 photos go into the one with kind of like a diagonal to it. So one of the things that I can't live without in my craft room, and it's not a big deal if you don't have one, but if you're ever thinking about getting one, is to get the mat with the measurement mat like this, because this thing is like a lifesaver to me. Every one of those little squares is a half an inch. So here you can see I just went down a half an inch on the one side and an inch on the other, and then I'm just going to use my ruler and I'm going to draw a line across, and then I'm going to take that, repeat it on the other side but slanting in the other direction. So this is your other 4x6 mat. As I line it up here, so it's a half an inch from the top and then 1 inch on the other side, and then just draw your diagonal. And there's my husband trying to make me eat a banana muffin that he made from scratch. He loves me. So now you're going to take these pieces over to my little cutter. He kept coming back. And I'm going to chop off those right on those lines. And I use, it's one that I actually got at like Staples. It's an X-Acto brand cutter that I use, the guillotine type blade. But any blade type, you guys make enough albums. You don't need, this is stuff that you probably already got, because if you use chipboard, you've got one of these guillotine cutters. So here's all the pieces kind of laid out as to how it's going to go, and I'm just going to set that aside and we're going to move on to making our hinges. So here's all the hinges that you're going to want to make. And one of the things that I use for mine, this is optional for you, is Tyvek. So that's a little piece of Tyvek, and I got these at Staples, and you can buy them individually, and they're just mailers, but they're waterproof. And one of the things about Tyvek is that it is so hard to rip. So what I did is I doubled up on all my hinges, and I put a piece of Tyvek in between, and then I put another piece on top of that. And all of these hinges are scored a half an inch on either side. So that's the nothing super exciting there. It's a half an inch on either side. So it's the Tyvek, it's the hinge, Tyvek, hinge, put them together. I use my bone folder a lot to reinforce all of my score lines because it starts to get kind of thick. For my hinges, I'm using just some white cardstock that I have laying around. It's about 80-pound cardstock from my stash, and that's it. So I'm going to do that to all of the hinges except for the ones that hold the cover, but we'll get to that later. So now we're going to attach our hinges. So for this, it's going to look kind of wonky, but just kind of follow along. Best thing to do with my tutorials is to watch it all the way through first and then come back later and follow it. So that way you can see if there's anything I'm doing that you don't like, or sometimes you'll see something in the video, but it'll look different in my measurements. And that's because I made the mistake and then I tried to correct it for you so you don't make the same mistake I made. So here we're just going to put some very strong adhesive. I use score tape. You can use the red line, whatever you've got, but I'm going to put it on each of the edges of the hinge. And I'm going to use my bone folder to really crease that down so that it doesn't move. Then I'm going to line this up because I want this piece to fold backwards. So this hinge is going to be on the front. And one of the things that's really important about putting this together is you want to line it up. Because if you don't make them even on the bottom, where they're exactly the same height, then you'll have like a barn door swinging on the ends. You don't want that. You want it to sit nice on the shelf and not be swinging and have to be held up by something. So just try to be mindful that your bottom half of all of your whole thing straight across is exactly the same height. Ask me how I know. All right, so now we're going to put on our next hinge. So this will be on your 5x7, or what will hold your 5x7 picture. And we're just going to attach, so this hinge is on the other side because this one folds in, the other one folds back. Reinforce. And then we're going to attach this one to the big piece. Again, making sure we line it up so we don't have any swinging doors. Really crease that down. And then we're just going to repeat the same exact process on the other side. So I won't make you sit through it twice. This video would be hours long if I didn't cut out all the extra stuff. And this is how it's going to go. So both your doors swing in and back, in and back. So that's pretty much it. This is the base of our frame. So now I'm going to work on the optional cover piece. If you don't want to make the cover piece because you're making this for yourself, or you'd rather put it in a box and give it as a gift rather than have the lid as the box top, then you will skip this whole part right here. But if you want to make it the way that I did, this is how I did it. So again, these are your optional hinges. I already gave you the measurements before. So at any time, you can pause the video, go back to those sections where I have your measurements and cut everything, and then come back and keep going. And I'm just going to do the same thing here that I did with the other hinges. So this is the box top piece right here, and we're going to attach our hinge right to the center of the top of the box top. And then we're going to place, so this is the little flap at the end that kind of folds over to make it a box. So we're going to attach that. And you'll notice right here, there's a mistake. So that's why you follow what I put on my video on the measurements and not what you see me doing right here, because I realized, what? I don't need that. That is way too big of a hinge. So I went and I cut that down, and the actual right measurement for that hinge is in your measurements right before when you made all of those. So basically I just trimmed it down, and now I'm going to put my double-sided tape and just attach it right there. We didn't need that big old piece. We just needed a small normal sized hinge. Now I'm just going to work that, make sure it's going to bend in both directions, because this has to bend two ways. And that's how that's going to attach. So we're going to just adhere our project to our cover. Again, lining it up so that nothing's all wonky. And this mat is like a lifesaver to me because I can line things up so much easier having this mat. So now I'm just gonna kind of reinforce that down and make sure that all of my pieces and parts are working. And these things, like I said, these bend both forward and back, so you might have to kind of loosen it up a little by going back and forth with it to make sure that you can move it easily. So for the frame, here's all your measurements for your frame and your frame hinges. So once we get started here, I'll show you. So our frame is made again out of the chipboard, and we're gonna, after you've cut all of your pieces and cut all of your hinges, this is basically how it's gonna set up. So we're gonna set up all of our pieces just like that. So let's start covering up our frame pieces. So first thing we're going to do is get our paper. So I decided for this particular frame I use this one, but you go through your paper and you pick whichever ones make you happy. This is just the one that I wanted to use for my frame. So what you do is you take your piece there, and since you have a 1/2 inch frame, you want to cut your paper at 1 inch, and then I just did an inch, 1 inch wide by an inch longer than the actual piece of chipboard, if that makes sense. And now I'm just going to make some little slits on the end. I'm going to use my glue, and I'm using art glitter glue for this. You can use tape if you have tape that's skinny enough to go in there and will hold it. I just happen to, I like the glue, although it does take a few minutes, not a few minutes, but I'd say a few seconds to get tacky so that it'll hold it down. Once it's tacky and it stays, it's staying. It's not coming off. So that's why I took the time to use the glue. But if you want to do it faster, and you have 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape, you could use that as well. Or you could cut your pattern paper a little bit wider, and then you could use thicker. You know what I mean. You could use thicker double-sided tape. But I was being really stingy with my paper because I have 3 projects to make, and I went a little crazy on the first project. So I might have to dial back the next 2 just a little bit. So I'm just gonna kind of work this out. You can see once it actually gets tacky, it holds really well. But it just takes a second for it to get, and it doesn't help that I put too much glue on the first time. So I'm just gonna show you one of them, and then the rest of them you're on your own. You just do the rest yourself, and I'll do the rest off camera. Otherwise, we'd be here for hours. Just tack down the other side. Your hinges for this, if you saw in the cutting guide, they should kind of look like a C when you're done. After you've scored it where I told you to score it. So we're going to make our mats. Here's your measurements for your mats, and then we'll go put everything together. So for this one, on the big frame, I ended up making it 3, so that pink piece is actually 8 by 10, so that's the size of whatever photo you're going to put in there. The green one is the mat, and then I will be making another, so I gave you all the measurements for this, but the third part of that, minus the pink paper, you have the right sizes. You'll see what I mean. But that piece that you just saw that went away needed another piece behind it because for some reason I cut them too short. So it didn't fit in there right. It was too small. So I just added another mat behind it, but you don't need to worry about that because I gave you the right measurements right from the start. So you can see here that there's this kind of like a C-shaped hinge, and I'm just going to place it on the back side of my frame, and then I'm going to line up my frame as best I can with the edge of my chipboard. So I did cover the back piece because I didn't want to waste, you're not going to see that, and I didn't want to waste a big old huge sheet of my awesome paper, so I just grabbed a piece that I thought kind of went with, that wasn't going to be too obvious for the back, and I covered that back piece. So that's just a piece from my stash. So we're just going to line up these 2 here, and that C-shaped hinge makes that gap for you to put your mat in and out easily, where you don't, it'd be super easy for it to pull it in and out. So I'm just making sure I line it up before I really push it down. And then I'll go through with my bone folder and reinforce all of that. Well, I usually do, but I guess I didn't here. For the bottom piece, you want to leave yourself a little space on either side. So since your frame is a 1/2 inch wide, leave yourself a 1/2 inch on either side and just trim down your um, hinges to make sure that they kind of sit in the middle. And then we're going to glue your frame together on the top. So you've got your hinge on the bottom so your mat doesn't fall out the bottom. And then we're going to just glue the bottom and the top right to the top of the sides. That makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to use my double-sided tweezers because it takes, like I said, a few seconds for that to set up. And then we're going to flip this over and we're going to glue the top piece right there to the top. So we're going to do it exactly the same way. This one doesn't have the hinge because you want to be able to slide your mat in and out. So hinges on the bottom, no hinge on the top. So we're going to glue this one. Use my reverse tweezers to hold it together. And then we will move on to the next step. So I put all of my frames together and I've attached them all, but I'm going to show you this one because it's kind of wonky because we cut that at a diagonal. So I put the 3 sides together like normal, and then this one is just going to follow that diagonal line down. Nothing special, just wanted you to see that I didn't do anything weird or make any alterations in the sizes. It's all the same sizes, we're just going to tilt it. So you will trim your edges to fit your actual page, if that makes sense. So here's already, now what we have left to do here is to put the rest of our mats in. I've already covered the cover, and I've covered the sides of the back and those 2 hinges and the bottom piece. But the rest of what I need to do is the rest of my hinges and also the backs of each one of the 4x6 and the 5x7. Those all need to be covered, and I will do that off screen because that's nothing super exciting. It's just cutting and pasting onto each one of the chipboard pieces. And then yeah, so this is pretty much it. I'm going to show you now how I made that flower on the front. And this is super easy. This has been out there forever. I'm sure you've seen it already, but just in case you haven't, if you have, just skip ahead. So I'm just using some fabric that frays really easily, and I did it in kind of a natural color so it would go with my frame here. And I'm just going to cut what would fit that is that's a 3.5 inch double stitched circle die, and I'm just using it as a template to make circle. It's much faster to do it this way than it is to run each piece through your machine, so your die cutting machine, so I just do it by hand. And I only need 3. I'm only going to use 3 layers, but since I have it sitting here ready to go, I'm just going to cut the whole strip. Oh, no, actually I use 4 for this one. And then just trim your circle. So other supplies that you need to make these kind of flowers is a button, and if you've got those little elastic bands that are strong enough, an elastic band would be much easier, but I'm going to use twine because I don't have any of those. I'm going to zoom in so you can see. Don't make fun of my fingernails, they're horrible. They have been gardening and oh, they're such a mess. So we just put the button in the middle, and then we're just going to take the twine, and some of this you can't see because I'm like using my super strength to pull this together, but you're just gonna either elastic band or tie and pull really tight, which you'll see me do here. One thing about the Good Baker's twine is you can pull it like there's no tomorrow and it won't break. I'm just gonna make a knot. That's it. Now it kind of looks like a little badminton birdie. Trim off all my mess there, and then you just fluff. I just flip it over so the button is the bottom of your flower and this is the top of your flower, and then I just pull each one of the layers apart and I just rough it up. So if you've got the kind of fabric that really frays easily, it makes a really nice shabby chic flower. And you can take like an antique button or some gems, or on the inside I used a pearl on the one that I made for the inside, or you can just leave it plain like I did for the outside. So that's just going to be plain, and I'm going to attach that to the seam binding for the outside of a little present, which I will show you right now. So I took some twine and I kind of wrapped it around like as if it were a present, like Christmas time present. Also, the piece that I cut off for my cover right here had those stamps in it. So I cut this, so I kind of trimmed the stamps out. I popped them up on some foam tape, and I'm just to give it a little bit of dimension, I'm going to attach those right over the other stamps. So I put all 4 of them on there. I also have some metal butterflies that are from the Tim Holtz collection, and I'm going to create a little bow here using the seam binding that matches this paper beautifully. Wonderful. And I'm just going to make like a double bow. So I'm going to do that twice, and then I'm just going to take a little glue dot. I guess that's what they're called, those real sticky glue dots, and I'm going to glue them together. I'm just going to stick them together. And then to attach the flower to the outside and to my twine, I'm just going to use a safety pin. So I'll safety pin through the back of the flower and then safety pin through the front of the bows with one small pin, and then I'll take another bigger safety pin and I'll put it through the back of the bows and attach it to the twine. So that way it's real easy, and then you could reuse this again later, or they can reuse it and attach it. Maybe you could even put it on the inside, attach it to one of the other frames. So once you get it all attached and kind of fluff it up, and then it looks like a pretty present, so you can give it as a gift. Here's the metal butterflies, and I had them sitting because I used them on the inside, and I had a couple left, and I thought, oh, this will look really pretty on the outside. Even though you're not going to see this, this is because it's going to be flipped over once it's open and you have your pictures in it, but it's a nice touch, and this is what the butterflies came in. So that's it. This is it. Now I'm going to show you the inside real quick, how I decorated it, because I didn't do everybody's going to do theirs differently, but I'll give you some hints about how I did this one. So here's a close-up of the inside, and I made all my own flowers in there, and you can see there's that. I'm going to zoom in so you can really get a good look at it. So I made all my flowers. This one has the pearl in the middle. I also had from, what was that collection called? Spring Garden? Secret Garden. Secret Garden. I had some extra pieces from Secret Garden collection. So that's just a piece of acetate that I cut into the corner, and you can see it when I pull that out. You can see that right there. See that acetate corner? And I decorated the corner so that way your frame can freely move up and down, and you can do the same thing on all of these. If you wanted to decorate every single one of your frames, you could do that. I liked to leave it like plain, and you can see all these are all my mats that come out. They just slide up and down and you put your pictures on it, and that's it. This is the end of the tutorial. So I hope you guys like this. I hope it's something that you guys want to give a try. I will leave any of the links that you need for any of the supplies in the description below. Head over to the Country Craft Creations website. I'm just going to leave you with some close-up pictures of some of the stuff that you may not have been able to see with it sitting up on, on display. And yeah, so if you have any questions or there's anything I was unclear on, please leave it in the comments below. Get a hold of me. I'd be happy to try to clarify anything that may have been a little unclear. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.